Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my reactions to Sony and Nintendo's E3 2017 announcements, with some other kind of game announcements that were thrown in there as well. So overall, I kind of didn't really like any of the press conferences. There weren't any kind of wow moments other than the stuff that Bethesda announced with Wolfenstein 2 and The Evil Within 2. I'm really looking forward to those games because those are franchises that I really like, especially with Wolfenstein 2 being the first Wolfenstein that they had released was a really good first-person shooter and kind of like a callback to the franchise and just really kind of chaotic fun. And I really liked the first Evil Within because it was a pretty good horror game with an interesting story, made in the vein kind of like Resident Evil 4. And I can't wait to see what these two games go at for, because each one kind of does their own kind of thing. I'm really pulled into Wolfenstein 2's kind of setting of America under Nazi rule and all that, and bringing back the main character from the first game and just kind of seeing where that goes. Evil Within 2, of course, kind of goes along and brings back the main character as well, and it's kind of interesting to see him having his daughter as his impetus to getting through all these crazy things, and to see how that kind of changes up gameplay and his motivations and what other kind of things he's going to get into. So those are my big things that I'm looking forward to. But other than that, with Sony really didn't pick up anything that kind of really wowed me. We kind of just heard the same kind of games that were coming, with two big surprises, I believe, with Monster Hunter's kind of MMO kind of take, which are okay, that can be good, and the remake of Shadow of the Colossus. And I really don't like how Sony's coming off, because it's going back to, it's flipping around back to, okay, Microsoft was arrogant with the Xbox One launch. Now Sony's kind of getting arrogant with their take on backwards compatibility. And I love Shadow of the Colossus. And it's but why don't you just let us kind of play what we already have? I mean, granted, I do like having updated textures and graphics and all that, and it's one of my favorite games. It's just when your two things are Monster Hunter MMO, which is going to be probably pretty cool, and a remake of a PlayStation 2 game, that does not make a good kind of E3 conference. Because now, granted, they did show stuff for Uncharted and God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn, but it was kind of stuff that we'd already known about, and we're we need some new stuff. Why didn't they introduce something from FromSoft? They've got to be working on Bloodborne 2 or something that they can at least tease out, because of course they've got Bloodborne locked in. And of course FromSoft could also be working on their kind of sci-fi one, because I know the director has wanted to do a sci-fi Souls-like game and kind of give a run for the money of The Surge. You know what I mean? But nothing on that effect. It was all kind of just usual, oh, here's just a little bit of new stuff, but here's the cool stuff that you can look forward to whenever it comes out. And it's okay, you had all these good exclusives in the beginning of the year, and you're not really given a good amount. You're pretty much coasting on the multiplats to carry out the rest of the year, and it's that's not a good thing. And I was expecting them to also kind of go after Microsoft and make fun of the fact of the Xbox One X being $499 and possibly lowering the PlayStation 4 Pro by $50 to $350 or whatnot. Now, granted, they still have time to do that when the holiday comes around, just to kind of stick it to Microsoft, because that's kind of been their MO these past couple of years. But I think we've seen the return of Sony being yeah, we're the top shit. And it's okay, so now we're just waiting for the big misstep. I'm glad that they did not announce a PlayStation 5, because that just would have fucking screwed everything over. It would have been no, 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 no. And I was just alright, that's Sony's press conference. Okay, what about Nintendo? Nintendo was a little bit better. Now, granted, they kind of won with their Nintendo Direct and everything, so they didn't really have a lot. But what they did have was kind of enticing, and granted, I put it more on par with what we got with Microsoft, mainly because we got some good announcements, but we didn't get that much information for certain things going forward in the future. Like, we got the announcement that we're getting a new Kirby game for the Switch. Yes, I'm all for that. Love me some Kirby. They're working on a Pokemon RPG for the Switch. Thank God. Now, granted, that's about all the information we got from it, but I'm like, okay, you're working on it. See how this goes. That will sell the shit out of the Switch. We also got the news that they are working on Metroid Prime 4. Now, I never really got into the Metroid Prime series. I did have the first one, but it was kind of like you're juggling all those different consoles at that time. And I never got through the trilogy, but I'm glad that they're working on another iteration for Metroid Prime, and that's about all we got. We don't know a release date. We just saw like an announcement trailer. Okay. Those are pretty much the big things that I took away from the Nintendo event. We also got the information that we're getting a 3DS Metroid game, like a remake of Metroid, previous Metroid game, and it looks pretty good. I'm excited because I've been wanting a handheld Metroid game for a while, and not one done in the vein of Metroid Prime, where it's like a first-person shooter, but I just kind of want a kind of 2D one. Now, granted, this is 2D, 3D kind of, and does some interesting stuff with Samus, having like fighting like melee attacks and all that, but I'm really looking forward to it, and I can't wait for that one to come out. And I'm like, okay, good job, Nintendo. And they're the one to really kind of like do their own thing and just kind of like be there. But overall, I just found that this E3 was kind of lackluster and didn't really wow us with showing us like a lot of new stuff. We kind of already knew everything, but I think that more goes to the fact that companies now have more power to announce games on their own schedule and then use E3 as that kind of show point to kind of prove their concept a little bit more. And I think that is going to really impact what's going to be going on with E3. Now, granted, it's all down to like how companies want to like market and push forward what's going on. I even heard that Sony had held back some announcements. I'm like, why would you do that? Get that hype going a little bit. And you gotta find the balance between announcing a game too early and just be like, hey, guess what? This game's coming out in a month. It's like, what? I didn't even know that was coming out. I didn't plan for that to come out. I mean, yeah, that's a surprise, but I'm like, okay. You want to find that balance point where you're like, okay, about a year's worth of time. That's kind of what Microsoft has been doing, learning from like canceling Scalebound and Fable, when to kind of announce their games. Nintendo can do whatever the fuck they want because that's how they've always done it. Sony, it's just like, you gotta keep building your momentum and keeping it going. I'm like, yeah, you've got the biggest install base at the moment, but you want to make sure that you are taking care of your fans. Just because you have the biggest install base doesn't mean everybody's going to eat up whatever you crap out. You want to make sure that you're engaged with your fans and giving them what they want, and that's really good exclusives. And that's what they're trying to do, but it's like, you could have done that a little bit better with this E3 press conference. Nintendo knew what was up and kind of doing their stuff. Microsoft was knowing what was up and doing their stuff to try and get everybody at varying degrees of success. It's just, overall, there weren't any big surprises like, oh, this company won E3. It's like, they're all kind of doing their own kind of thing, so it's really hard to judge that, but you're all kind of just like, I see a lot of differing missteps business-wise with each one that it's like, okay, either with Nintendo's being really short and not giving as much information, or Sony's just kind of like doing the same kind of stuff with only minimal standout announcements, or Microsoft doing a lot of games, but also trying to announce and launch hardware at the same time, making it kind of like really long, really diverse, but it's like, okay, where's your first parties? As you can see, each one has their own kind of deficiencies, and it was more mainly to the game developers, kind of like the publishers like Ubisoft, EA, and Bethesda to kind of show things to get people excited. It's kind of weird that I'm like, okay, my most anticipated ones that I saw from E3 were like Wolfenstein 2, The Evil Within 2, and then like Code Vein, because I'm like, ooh, I could play that on Xbox! And I'm like, okay, it's Souls, like, Alright, we'll see how this goes, because I like the art style, I like the direction, I kind of like how the story is kind of presented to us, so I'm intrigued to see how that is as an action kind of horror game and what's going on. Otherwise, I'm like, okay, I've known about these other games, I've been hyped for them, and I'd like some more new stuff. So, those are my reactions to, like, Sony and Nintendo's press conferences and the kind of other things that were announced at E3 2017. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked them, if you didn't like them, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.